All right. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Is everybody online with me? I've got 210 people here, so looks like everybody is watching and can see. Well, we appreciate everybody being here this afternoon. My name is Brian Hirsch, and I am the Senior Associate Director for the Career Center in the Ryan College of Business. And this panel is Introduction to Diversity in the Workplace. It's a part of the G. Brent Ryan College of Business Professional Development courses. And just a reminder, please make sure that you have your correct first and last name in Zoom as it appears on your class roster. And so that way your instructor, if you're getting credit for being here, they can find you to give you the credit. If you're using a phone, remember that your phone often will use your phone number to identify you, and your instructor won't be able to find you by your personal phone number. So make sure you enter a name. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat or in the questions section on Zoom. We'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can. This afternoon, we have a great panel of experts on our subject, and will be led by Mark Pullum, and I will turn it over now to Mark for introductions.
Good afternoon to everyone. Very pleased to be here. Again, thank you to Dr. Hirsch and the Career Center and G. Brent Ryan College of Business. Just to give you a little information about myself, I was colleagues with Dr. Hirsch. We both worked in the Career Center, and I also taught one of the levels of this course that you guys are participating in. So I'm a big advocate for this course. I'm a big advocate for the services that the Career Center provides, and also know that Dr. Hirsch is intimately dedicated to this subject, and also to making sure that you have the information that you need to be successful. And having said that, I want to introduce our panelists for today. And we'd like to start off with Kayla Kelly, please.
Hello, thank you, Mark. And just thank you all for being here. I'm excited to be a part of this panel and this discussion. So I'm a senior manager at KPMG in our audit practice. I've been with the firm for about 9.5 years. And I'm also a person with a physical disability. I was in a car accident when I was 16. So I'm really passionate about DEI in the workplace. I'm involved in our Abilities in Motion, BRG, Business Resource Group, both locally in Dallas and also at a national level within our firm. And I'm also part of our local culture council, which really is purpose is to just help drive our KPMG culture that's communicated at the highest level and really drive that locally in Dallas as well.
Thank you so very much. We will want to move to Ms. Jamis Atkins, please.
Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. My name is Jamis Atkins. I am an associate on our diversity recruiting team with Goldman Sachs. I've been with the firm for just under a year now, which is literally a little bit insane, but really excited and really love the work that I do. Just to kind of like give a snapshot of it, the work that my team does is really around kind of demystifying the idea that is Goldman Sachs and bridging the gap between underrepresented groups and Goldman Sachs, and just really making sure that our employee base looks like the world around us. And so I particularly manage our HBCU, partnership and pipeline efforts, as well as our LGBTQ pipeline efforts. But super excited to be here and can't wait to engage in the discussion.
Thank you so very much. Zachary Logan, please.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. As Mark mentioned, my name is Zach Logan. I have the privilege of serving as the corporate manager of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Albertsons Companies. At Albertsons, we are the second largest supermarket chain in the United States, and we are on a journey to be as diverse, equitable, and inclusive as possible. There are various initiatives that we're working on and that we have worked on in the past to ensure that we reach that mission. So I'm excited to be here to talk a little bit about our journey and perhaps even my journey when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've been with Albertsons for a little over 1 year now, so it's been an exciting journey and look forward to continuing the journey.
Thank you so very much. I want to start off with kind of framing this conversation this afternoon, thinking about these students who are upperclassmen, who some may be in the final semester of their senior year, preparing to make the transition, either already interviewing and securing a professional position or still in the process of interviewing and securing a professional position. So to our panelists, I want to ask the question, when you think about that last semester and what you should be doing to prepare, either to engage with employers or to prepare that first day of work or that first 60, 90, 100 days of work, what can you tell these students that will be helpful in making that transition between those last 2 semesters into the professional work? Zach, if you'll start off with this, and also if you don't mind sharing with them where you went and did your undergrad, if you have an advanced degree, just kind of frame for them a little bit about yourself dealing with academics as well.
Yes, definitely. So I'll start with my personal experience. I graduated from high school when I was 16 years old. So at 16, I said, okay, I have a challenge. Where do I go to school and how do I fit in? So I went to, I'm from New York originally. I went to St. John's University, which is in Queens, New York. Received my bachelor's degree in government and politics from that institution. For some reason, I wanted to complete everything very efficiently when I was in my teens. So I graduated at 19 from St. John's with my bachelor's degree. I then went on to pursue a Master of Liberal Arts degree, which I don't know why I pursued it, but in the spirit of candor. But I went on to pursue a Master of Liberal Arts degree at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And then I went on to also pursue an MBA at Boston University. So for some reason, I like school. I don't know why. But with that said, the most important question that you have to challenge yourself and the organizations that you're communicating with, you have to challenge them on what is your culture and how will I fit into this culture? Most importantly, I think sometimes we look at job offers and we say, oh, that job offer seems exceptional. But if you don't think you're fit into that organization, then it may not be the best fit for you. So I think it's important as you're vetting and as you're vetting employers, ask those tough questions. What's your leadership style like at this organization? What is your culture? Do you believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion? Do you truly believe in it, or is it just something you talk about? And if you truly believe in it, what initiatives have you taken on to show that you truly believe in it? So I think asking those tough questions during the interviewing process, it's crucial, because the last thing you want to do, especially for your first job, is to get into an organization and then it's not a good fit for you. And that may happen, and it's not the worst case scenario, but you want to try to alleviate that from transpiring. So that's my biggest advice when you're going to the recruiting process. Ask those tough questions during an interview. Remember, employers, and I work for a company, we employ thousands. We need you just as much as you need them, right? So when you're interviewing, I call it like a dating process. You're going through this first date, and you want to ensure that this person coincides with your beliefs and your values.
Thank you. Jamise, I want to take his answer a little bit further. I also want you to share a little bit about your academic background, but I want you to think about what Zach's shared with us. And now, as he has placed us in a mindset of the interview process, the students may be asking, how and when during the process do I approach those questions? And what is my lead in? Of course, they may ask, do you have any questions? But how do you break that kind of, not tension, but break that to where they can ask the question, how to lead into it, if you will, please.
Sure, absolutely. So a little bit about me. Zachary, we're twins. I also graduated from high school at 16. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I went to a small all-girls school in South Dallas, and then I went on to Texas A&M University. I studied sociology and business administration. I was one and done, and so I left with my bachelor's degree in sociology and in business, and then actually started with Texas Instruments for my first company. And so, I mean, it is exactly as Zachary mentioned, you are going on a bit on a couple of dates with these companies when you're interviewing and you're getting to know them. It's, you know, you're obviously talking to a number of different companies at a time. And I'd have to say that the easiest way, there's really there's no waiting on asking those hard hitting questions, because you want to make sure that you are not only like you're not wasting their time and they're not wasting your time. So you want to make sure that you're getting the answers that you need to understand whether or not a company is one that you want to move forward with, whether that's a second round or a third round, or if you're ready to, you know, bite the bullet and accept an offer. I'd say as it relates to me, when I was interviewing with companies fresh out of college or first semester of my senior year, as well as just recently a year ago, as I was assessing whether or not Goldman Sachs would be a place where I wanted to start. I thought the best way to kind of approach the conversation was to show that I had done my research on what they already do. So then once you already have a kind of a preliminary understanding of what they do, maybe probing them on, like, I saw with Goldman Sachs, I had learned more about like our HBCU possibilities program. And I apologize, that's totally biased because that's now the program that I manage. But when I was interviewing, it is one that I noted. And so I had questions about it. I was like, how did this program come to be? Where's the nexus of this program? Where is it supposed to go? What does this signify? And once I got the ball rolling in a place where I was coming like, not, you know, in an investigative way, but more so like, I just want to, you know, learn more about the work that you guys do. It was really easy to segue the conversation into all of the different places that we operate, the work that we do, the way that we do it, so that I could have a better understanding of like where our priorities really fell, and how we really navigate it. And then as you kind of start those conversations, like it gets easier once you're deciding that you want to step into that second round, you want to go ahead and accept that interview. There's a certain level, like a little bit more comfort that you might have. You'll still feel the nerves, obviously not going to negate that. But you know, second round, you know a little bit more about the company because you've already had a conversation with maybe one or two people. You can leverage the topics that you've had in those conversations, embed them into your next one. So in my second interview, I was like, you know, I talked with Mariani about this, and I would love to get your opinions and your thoughts on X, Y, and Z. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your perspective of it? What goes on, what doesn't, and really see, that's your opportunity to see if communication aligns across the board, making sure that everyone's kind of as a company on one accord, and they're really pushing forward the same kind of agenda.
Okay, thank you. Kayla, again, I want you to, if you don't mind, give us some of your background educationally. And for your response, I want you to kind of talk about, again, we're thinking about those students in that last year or that last semester, preparing to make that transition. Recruitment into an organization is all about talent, and it's talent driven. And organizations come on campus for campus recruiting, but give us some of your insight on students taking their ability, their talent, and being able to transition that into their story as they're being recruited by companies such as yourself, KPMG, Goldman Sachs, Albertsons. How, again, about approach, because this is, you know, career center based. So again, these are tools and skills that we want them to have in their toolbox to make sure that they're having a good experience in the recruitment process.
Yeah, I have, I think a couple of funny stories. And it doesn't seem like it was this long ago, but it was. So when I started interviewing, I actually did an internship with KPMG. Oh, hold on, let me backtrack. So I am actually from Louisiana. If you talk to me long enough, you'll hear more of that. But And I went to LSU in Shreveport. I got a undergrad in accounting there, and then I also got an MBA. I wasn't quite as ambitious as these two, but I did finish my undergrad in 3 years, and I did get an MBA in a year and a half. So a little bit, but when I started interviewing, I knew I liked math, I liked numbers, so I knew that that was going to be the direction I was going in. And I decided that I want to interview with KPMG because it's an international firm and just international business and just all things and the opportunities of potentially doing work internationally was really appealing to me. And so that's kind of what drew me to KPMG. Also, I was from a small town in Louisiana and felt like if I don't get out of this place, I'm going to get sucked in. So Dallas was calling my name. I did do an internship at KPMG in Shreveport during my graduate, my last semester. And when I went in for that interview, you know, I too remember sitting in your seat with like the list of prep questions that they give you, and they tell you like prepare to be asked these questions. And so I'm like, okay, I've got like some responses together. And I went in for this interview, and one, I did not get any of those questions. I got, tell me about yourself. So I would say be prepared to talk about yourself and not necessarily what's on that piece of paper, your resume or your list of classes and your, you know, academics or what you're involved in, because that they can see. They really want to know that you can communicate and that you can sell yourself, because especially for KPMG, we're a client service industry. So we are working with people all the time. So also during that conversation, I kind of came in there, you know, I'm in college and I had my car accident when I was 16, and it somehow did not even occur to me that like being in a wheelchair was an issue for people. And I had a mentor that kind of suggested as I was getting ready for my interview, like, you know, they can't ask you about this legally. And again, this is like 9.5, you know, 10 years ago. So we've come a long way. But, you know, I'm going into this like, okay, like this is a thing that I guess I need to be aware of. So I went into my interview and I said, I know that you can't ask me about my chair, but I'm going to tell you, it doesn't stop me from doing anything. And I went on to explain, you know, how I've traveled or some of the achievements outside of what they could see on paper to know that I can do this. And I've actually taken that approach in throughout my career as well, knowing that someone can make an assumption of me simply based on the appearance, and just being proactive in, you know, I don't want you to have an assumption of me. I'm going to go ahead and tell you about who I am. So I think that is just something that you all can be encouraged by, is that that's totally okay. And just having that confidence when you go into those interviews with potential employers, or even once you get into your position and you're looking for ways to grow in the company or the firm that you're at, just have that confidence and really kind of know who you are and how you want to sell that.
Thank you. Zach, let's make a slight transition into now you have accepted a role, you're there day one, and we're thinking forward. We're thinking about the first 90, 120, 180 days, finding your place, finding those that are advocates for all of these things that we're talking about. But Zach, give the students a perspective on mindset, goals to obtain, or who to ask to be a mentor, or who to latch on to. Tell them about those expectations, even for your own organization within the first 90 to 180 days, to kind of set the stage for other things. I mean, you can't get too in depth into diversity inclusion if you're not doing your job. So let's make sure that we set the expectations that you've been hired for something, but how to really navigate those first 6 months, if you will.
Yeah, great question. I think it's important to discern who on your team has been a top performer. So there's always a top performer on your team. Try to discern who that is within the first 2 to 3 weeks and make a connection with that person. Ask that person, simply ask. It's an honor in some cases to be asked to be a mentor. I've been asked myself, and I have to look around. You want me to be your mentor? Are you serious? But it's an honor to do that, or to be asked to be a mentor. So look at your team, analyze who's the top performer, because ultimately you endeavor hopefully to be a top performer, and build that relationship as much as possible. In addition, it's important, in my opinion, to join an employee resource group or an associate. At Albertsons, we call them associate resource groups. We have 7. So even if you don't identify as a member of an underrepresented demographic, joining an employee resource group is incredibly important because it gives you the opportunity to network with others, especially if you work for an organization that's remote at this juncture. And I know there are quite a few out there. You don't have an opportunity as an entry-level employer to make those connections. So joining an employee resource group will give you an opportunity to network and build connections with others. Most importantly, I think it's important to build a relationship with your supervisor. Don't just wait for one-on-ones. Build that relationship. Ask your supervisor questions. There's no question that you can't ask. So ask those questions. And even to this day, I ask for feedback on my performance at least once per month. How am I doing? Is there anything that I need to improve on? Maybe that's the New York in me, but I believe in that, having that transparency and having that upfront relationship, because the last thing you want to do is be surprised when it's time for your performance appraisal and you're given negative feedback. So if your supervisor doesn't give you that feedback, build that connection with your supervisor and ask those questions up front.
Thank you. Jamise, he mentioned feedback. He mentioned the possibility of receiving negative feedback, especially as a new employee, as a new professional. Sometimes that is extremely difficult to take in as a criticism or something that you can use to get better. Talk to us about, again, those first 6 months, sometimes the difficulty of it, learning to receive feedback, whether it's positive or negative or critical, and how to use that to your advantage in a situation where you're really trying to get yourself off the ground as far as a new professional.
Yeah, for sure. I will be so transparent about the fact that if you are anything like me, I'm a first generation college student. No one in my family works in corporate America. And I'm still explaining what I do to this day. And I changed jobs a couple times, so I have to re-explain every time. All of that to say is that if you're anything like me, and if you are as dramatic as me, I was so nervous when I started my first role. I just thought anything negative, anything that was short of, Jamise, you're amazing, you did a wonderful job, man, I was getting fired. Like I would lose it every time. I'd be like, okay, wait a minute. They didn't tell me afterward that was awesome. And so the one thing, like I will say first and foremost, as you're stepping into your roles, is understanding that it is not do or die. It is that it is truly constructive criticism, that the feedback that you are being given is not in an effort to beat you down or to like make you feel less than or anything like that. People are truly, the hope would be that your managers, your teammates, people are truly investing in you, and they see potential and they see growth. And if they did not see that potential, if they did not see that opportunity, they wouldn't waste their time coaching you and giving you that feedback. So that would be the first thing, is just understanding the perspective, understanding what's being come to you or what's being said to you, and not harping on the negative, harping on where there's opportunity to improve. I'll say the next thing that I think a lot of new college grads kind of fumble into when they first start is immediately reacting to feedback, reacting negatively because they feel the need to defend, even if it's something as simple as, hey, you could have responded to this email a little bit sooner. And people will be like, well, I didn't do it because I did this and I did that, and I could have did this and I could have did that. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. It doesn't really matter at this point. But what you can do is accept the feedback, internalize it, take some time, and like whether it's as small as you could have responded to an email or bigger, whether it relates to, your major stakeholders or your deliverables, and really take some time to just think about, okay, this is what they said. This is how it made me feel. this is the reality of the situation, and this is how I can improve moving forward. And I think managers and your team, your teammates, your stakeholders will truly appreciate your ability to receive that feedback and honestly, like, keep it trucking, like making sure that you don't hold up, that you don't stop, that it isn't something that's debilitating, that you can be talked to, and you can have a conversation with about, you can have a conversation with your manager or whoever about your performance in a way that's productive and efficient. And those are probably the two things that I would spike out first and foremost.
Thank you. So Kayla, tell us about, Zach mentioned ERGs, or associate resource groups, as the case for Albertsons. Talk to us about joining an organization, benefits of joining an organization, and some goals that you should set for yourself in what you receive, or what's your return on investment for joining one of those organizations.
Yeah, I'll share my personal experience with our Abilities in Motion BRG, and BRG, just so you understand the difference. ERG are employee resource groups, BRG are business resource groups, and it's really, there's not much of a difference other than the name, but it's just more of like a business structure of the business is allowing the business resource groups to drive some of these initiatives versus like the employer is actually putting the business resource group in place versus the employee resource groups, I believe, are usually kind of naturally created among the employees, but not anything to be confused about. They're essentially the same thing. So in KPMG, our Abilities in Motion business resource group, I actually just kind of stumbled across the group when I was searching on our portal when I had joined the firm. So I've been a part of our business resource group or I'll just say BRG for short, since I started with the firm. And I realized after a couple of years of not getting a lot of information in Dallas that it wasn't a very active group. The first email I got from a national level that we're looking for people to either, nominate someone or nominate yourself to be a part of this new initiative to bring about like this next generation of leaders within the BRG. I knew like nobody here really knows my story. They're not going to nominate me, so I'm going to nominate myself. So this is again very, proactive approach. And I did, and I got selected to be a part of this group, and it opened so many doors. One, I spoke about KPMG being a national firm. I have gotten to know people throughout the firm, not just limited to Dallas, and it makes a company that is so large feel a little bit smaller, for one. And some of these people I've actually become very close with, people I've never met in person that, we celebrate. One of my colleagues just went on maternity leave and we sent her, a baby care package to Colorado. And another friend that went on leave, a few of us, we got a baby book, and the baby book started in Colorado and someone signed it, and then it was shipped to Chicago and someone signed it, and then it came to Dallas. And so like we really build valuable relationships with our colleagues that make such a difference in just your I don't want to say happiness, because happiness is really temporary, but just your joy and your like fulfillment in what you're doing matters at your job, because you definitely need to feel like what you're doing matters. So not only those personal connections, but I had the opportunity to go to, this was my first like national conference we did for the BRG. And we do a lot of national trainings at KPMG. Every level, every year, you go to a national training, and it's the same thing. Hi, I'm Kayla from Dallas. I work in this industry. But when I went to this Abilities in Motion BRG conference and I met people, it was, hi, I have a son with autism, or hi, I have epilepsy, or hi, fill in the blank. And it was like, these are my people. Like, these are real people. And I just, just felt so much belonging at the firm. And so, I like to say at KPMG, I enjoy my job. I like what I do, like the auditing, the accounting side of it. But the people and the work that I get to do within the BRGs is, really where my passion lies, my passion and my purpose. And I think Zachary said this about, you don't necessarily have to fit into the box of whatever that BRG is. So, for example, at KPMG, we have 7 diversity groups. So this is not only Abilities in Motion, which is disability related, but we have the African ancestry, we have HLN, our Hispanic Latina network, we have our Pride network, our KPMG network of women, veterans, we have so on and so forth. And you don't have to necessarily identify as one of those groups. You can sign up to be an ally, which is really just to show up and say, like, this may not necessarily be who I am, but I am supporting you. Because really, something else I've said that when we talk about leaders and like, how can you be a confident leader? Well, when you know that you have support. If we have support, then we can confidently lead. But if without that support, it's a lot harder to put ourselves out there.
Okay. I want to come back to Zach, and I want to come back now to placing yourself, Zach, in the role of the employer who is sitting across the desk, interviewing one of these students. Tell me about your expectations in an interview and what a student can do to really stand out in an interview. Of course, there's interview guides, there's all these things like Kayla mentioned. She was given a list of questions that they didn't ask, but they asked her to tell about themselves. And it's always kind of a very open-ended, and you don't know where to start at birth or to start, last semester. But in an interview, Zach, what would be some of the things that would make a candidate stand out? Because I'm sure you get 4,000 or 5,000 applicants just for one job posting. So what makes a person stand out in an interview, and what are you looking for specifically from that interviewee?
Yes, great question once again. Mark, you're on a roll. I love it. I think from an employer perspective, as a candidate, you want to really articulate what you have done, whether if it's in college, whether if it's in high school or the community. What have you done aside from just being a student? Everyone that's interviewing will likely either be a college graduate or be very close to completing their degree. So that's not going to make you different. What have you done that's elevated the community that you live in? What have you done to elevate student life at the institution? What have you done, even in high school? What did you do in high school to elevate the experience? Because what we're looking for here at Albertsons Companies is we're looking for someone who's going to elevate not only our company from a top and bottom line perspective, but who's going to elevate the employee experience. Someone who will be a great contemporary to work with. So ensure that you articulate that as much as possible, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those, some would argue, those soft factors as to how have you contributed to college life? How have you contributed to the community? And it's important to make sure that you highlight that, because that's the only way you're going to stand out. If you just, everyone will likely have a decent GPA, everyone will have a good major, everyone will obviously will have a college degree or be very close to that. That's not going to make you stand out. Really articulate what you have done to elevate the experience at your institution and in your community.
Thank you. Jamise, I want to continue on with Zach's comments. And what I heard Zach say was articulation, communication, and contribution. So again, from the lens of sitting across the desk, now give them some pointers on, or some anecdotes or some stories, some real stories of when you interviewed, of being able to articulate, communicate, and talk about your contributions. What does that look like in real time, and how do they approach it again? Because sometimes breaking that ice or knowing what to say or when to say is kind of like, the jump rope is going and you don't know when to jump in, right? So give them some tips on again, going further on what Zach really gave us some good information on.
For sure. I would say to that point is that, and this is so easier said than done, I totally recognize that, but bringing your full self to the conversation, bringing your personality to the conversation really makes the difference, and it really makes a story stick. So you could tell me how you did X, Y, and Z as the vice president of whatever organization and all these other things, but did you add in that extra caveat of maybe sharing, for example, we have like a presentation at Goldman, like we call like building your story of self, and understanding all the different facets of you, your identity, your place in the world, where you feel you fit in best, all those different things that kind of come together that make you who you are and have driven the way that you've navigated whatever decisions you've made up to this point. It's important to really embed that into the conversation so that, like, I know I personally, as an interviewee, I have no boundaries. I like to feel like I'm comfortable and I want to share, obviously in a professional manner, but I'm going to be myself, because if you can't hire me as myself, then I won't thrive as myself in the organization. And so really feel like you are being your true self. And as an interviewer, also probably indicative of my boundaries, I like to make sure that I know someone. Like, I want to have a direct conversation with you. I don't want to talk with your paper, with your resume, because I read that already. That's why you got picked. I want to talk to you, the person who's sitting in front of me. So really bringing those added facets, talking about your passions, talking about why something may have frustrated you, but how you navigated that situation, talking about why this was really difficult, but you cared so much because of X, Y, and Z, and that's why you made it happen. And here's how you made it happen. Always, of course, follow up with those results, but make sure that you add that personal touch. I've never been shy to add in, where my background has brought me who I am and how like I feel. And so I would definitely, like, as you feel comfortable doing so, make sure that you like share that in there. And if you're, again, anything like me, I have like a very obsessive personality when it comes to preparing for things. So like I took a couple of steps. Like I went into like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, looked at the companies I was interviewing with, and leveraged the questions that they have on that website. And then I took some time, sat down with my resume and a list of questions, and I saw, okay, which experience can I match maybe to this question? And what part of me is important to make sure that I know about this experience? What's interesting here and what's interesting there? And I scripted out a couple of responses to the point where like talking about me and talking about myself didn't feel comfortable, because I already had it down to a T. I could recite my interview responses in my sleep. I was. So I would, get comfortable with yourself, get comfortable with your story, and then just really be prepared to share that.
Thank you. Kayla, build off of these two responses, please.
I don't think there's much left, but I will say, just kind of on the note of preparation, ways that you can do this well is practice in front of a mirror, and like look at what do you do with your hands when you talk, or record yourself even and watch that back. I remember having to do that in college. So some of you may have already had to go through this experience of giving a speech and having to brutally watch yourself afterwards, and then write a paper about it like I did. But how many fillers do you use, or what do you do with your hands, or just like your confidence, and it's really it's tough to watch and do that yourself, but it will pay dividends during that interview, because it will help you ahead of time kind of get out some of those nervous jitters. Just the more that you practice and feel comfortable doing that with those responses. I think the other thing is try to get out of your head a little bit and think about the perspective of the person sitting in the chair. Like, Jameis said, they already have your resume. You don't need to go, or your your GPA and things like that. They don't need to know what's on the paper. They really want to know that you can communicate, that you have confidence, and that really just want to know who you are. And so if you can just think about that perspective of like, they just want to know that I'm not coming in here and just a complete so get that part out of your head and just think about their perspective of like, you know what, this isn't as scary as I think it is. I'm really just going to have a conversation with someone. And if it is a good fit, then it will work out. And if it's not, then there are a ton of other opportunities that you'll be able to embark on. Something to note is there are no failures. There are only learning opportunities. So think about that too when you go to an interview.
Continue on, if you will, specifically since we are talking about students in the G. Brent Ryan College of Business, and your specialty is accounting and audit. Speak directly to the accounting students who could gain, valuable insight into your world and the expectations for accounting interviews.
Yeah, I will say, kind of jokingly, but completely serious, is if you have never worked a full-time job, which I assume many of you haven't if you're going through college, be prepared to be tired. I think the first 3 months that I worked 40 hours a week, I was absolutely exhausted. But aside from that, in accounting and in the business environment, man, there are so many opportunities, and I realize that we may not all be numbers people, but specifically with what I do and what I really enjoy is when I am working with a team or on a company that we're auditing and going through, we learn so much about the company. So we've talked about doing research and when you're going into those interviews of somewhere you want to work with, but we get to learn so much about the company that we are serving very intimately, and it's just you just learn a lot. Specifically at KPMG, we have which I think is pretty cool is when we talk about the trajectory of your career, and if whether you're like taking each year at a time or whether you have a 10-year plan. Specifically in our firm, we have a set promotion timeline. And so you can kind of know if I am doing well and doing what I'm supposed to, and kind of going back to what we talked about with feedback, always getting feedback, even if it's not given. And if it is given, taking that constructive feedback and learning from it and growing. That's a little bit of security, which is great in a time where there's not a lot of certainty. It's good to kind of have those areas of your life, and specifically with your career, of like having a little bit of certainty. I have, and I don't know if I'm getting into too many details, so please stop me if I am. So like specifically for me, I was an audit associate for 2 years, and then I was a senior associate, a manager for 2 years, and now I'm senior manager, and have a lot of opportunities beyond this. If you stay at a company for a little while, and I'm sure both of these guys can attest to their moves and their professional journeys, but I don't know if I'm answering your question. I don't want to get too detailed about accounting if these students are like, I don't care about numbers. But if you are, I do have a lot of KPMG specific resources and would welcome you to reach out, and I can get you connected to those people if that's something that you're interested in. And we do have information where you can continue to get information from KPMG. So if anyone is, please let me know, and I'm happy to do that.
Hey, Mark, we have a related question, and it has
Sure.
to do with trying to stand out in an online in job internship applications. It's a little bit of a distinction between the actual application and some tips to make yourself more attractive to employers on applications in order to secure the face-to-face interview.
Who would like to tackle that?
While y'all are thinking about it, let me just throw in here that part of the online application, and I think this is something that students really need to be aware of, is that the online application systems are machine driven. It's machine learning. And so I was just on a webinar the other day, and the person who's an expert on this was saying that the approved resume format that we give, that Mark actually put together original a number of years ago, is exactly what you guys should be using. These systems are very text driven. They really don't like graphics and images, and they like organization. So one of the things that I would would encourage you to do is if you're not using that format already, to really go back and reformat so that you can get past the gatekeeper, the machine that's passing it on to the human to read afterwards.
Yes, very true. And very, very sage advice because having worked in talent acquisition, knowing that if the software does not recognize the information, it's as if you never sent it. And that can lead to, why hasn't the company ever reached out, et cetera. So certainly use the templates and the advice that the Career Center, I know some of you are creative, you want to use colors, you want to use special fonts to stand out, but that gatekeeper is no longer an individual. It is a software, and it is very difficult if you don't put it in the format that it wants to read. I've got a question here, and to any of our panelists: is it ever too late to begin incorporating extracurricular activities into your resume? And that came from Cassandra. So thank you, Cassandra, for that question. But is it ever too late to begin incorporating extracurricular activities into your resume?
I can tag in. Absolutely not. I'm still incorporating extracurricular activities onto my resume. I'm 5 years into my career. So at any point in time, you find things that you're passionate about and you're joining in 100%. Like, we want to hear about that. We want to see it on your resume. If you started it this semester, add it in and, let us know like why you chose it, what you're doing there, all those good things.
Thank you. Allison asked a question: what would be the keywords that computers look for? So it's relative to the job description that the company posted. So I know it sounds incredibly tiresome, but each individual job description that you apply for, you can incorporate the keywords from the description into your resume. Now, that may mean that if you're going to apply for 20 companies, you may have 20 versions of your resume. But again, you're asking what the computer is looking for, and it's looking for matches. So there's a percentage that the computer is looking for. For example, if this job description has, let's say it has 5,000 words, right? Telling you everything about the situation. The match may be that you have to have 40% of the same words that are in the job description to match to your resume. And that's what it's looking for. It just depends on the logic and the algorithm that's set up for the software that the company's using, Taleo, BrassRing, a variety of different systems. But it's really based on that. That's the keyword. So look at those job descriptions, and you need to mirror the things you say about what you've done to what they're looking for. Let me go back to the panelists, and I see you guys starting to chime in, and we'll also leave at least 30 minutes for direct Q&A. But back to my panelists, and I think this is an important question to ask. So we'll start with Zach. One thing when we talk about DEI in the workplace is the navigation of the multiple generations that are in the workplace. Some people say there are up to 6 generations that can be in the workplace. All of those different age groups and experiences and transitions. Zach, talk to us about just kind of putting your head around 5 to 6 generations of people and what that kind of means to someone coming in as a new professional. 21, or in your case, at 19 years old, if you had decided to go to work, you could have people in their 70s, even their 80s working. Tell us about your experiences with that and how to just navigate it.
Yes, I think if you focus on our differences, then you're never going to see past it. So when I have someone, I like to say more experience, when there's someone who's more experienced I'm working with, I want to learn from that experience, because that individual likely they've been with the organization for a number of years, and they'll be able to tell me how to maneuver in this organization. So when you have a multitude of different age demographics that's on your team, you can learn something from each and every one of those individuals. So take it upon yourself to learn from them. And quite frankly, they want to learn from you too, right? You may not have a lot of experience in corporate America. You may be new, but they want to learn from you. How is it? And when I was 19 at the time, Facebook was relatively new. So I had one of my older contemporaries ask me about Facebook. Like, what is this Facebook thing about? What are you guys on? And I had the opportunity to show her what Facebook was about. So now for those who are graduating now, other folks who have been in the workplace and who have a lot of experience, they want to learn from you just as much as you want to learn from them. So make it a mutual internalization process and understand that irrespective of the different generations that's on your team, we can learn from each other. That's what makes us unique. Irrespective of our racial background, irrespective of our gender, sexual orientation, or age, we're able to learn from each other and learn about the experiences of each other.
Thank you. Janice, what do you have to add to this generational conversation in the workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally gonna steal from Zachary a little bit, but I think that the most important thing to know here is that there is no stage at any point in our careers where we stop learning. And so really just like, my thing that like I think I've always like navigated with is that at the end of the day, like we are all people with different wants, different wishes, different ambitions, and different, understandings of the world around us. And so the best way that you can navigate it is to make those personal connections and understand, what does this person care about? What does that person care about? What's going on over here? And what do I have to gain from this situation? What do I have to give in this situation? And that kind of helps you best navigate, as you move from room to room, and understand like, what is your value add in the room, and what is your value takeaway? And so I think kind of getting out of your head around what your differences might be and just kind of getting to know a person will completely change the course of the conversation.
Thank you. Kayla.
I pretty much work with a multi-generational team. Specifically, the job I'm working on is pretty large audit engagement. And I mean, we have interns, which sitting right in your seat, being in college, and new hires, experienced associates, managers, partners partners can range from being with the firm for 14 years to being with the firm for 30 years. So there's a lot of gaps there in age and experience, but like, both of these two said, there's a lot of experience and perspective and just a lot to learn from each other. One way that I personally try to just, keep my perspective fresh is with our like associates and our staff. Once you've been with the firm for so long, you're away from the detailed work that they may do, so your perspective is different, and you may not necessarily always have at top of mind what they're going through in their role and their responsibilities, because you're now so far from it. So we have a lot of opportunities to do instructing and training. And so I did for a couple of years instruct our new hire training. And that helped me as a manager to just know what our new hires, our associates coming in fresh out of college, like, what are they concerned about? What questions? What are they learning? So that way I don't have a unrealistic expectation of what they should know or what they should be doing. So I think just not only keeping the open mind of like, hey, we can learn something from each other, but also just proactively looking for ways that you can keep those perspectives fresh.
Thank you. I'm going to incorporate two of the questions that we have. One is, interviews can be nerve-wracking. And how do you hold your nerves? And then the second one is, what can you do if your nerves get the best of you and you can't think of an answer to an interview question? So how to compose yourself in an interview if you get really nervous and you can't even remember your name, let alone the question.
I'll take that, Mark. I'll take the first part of the question. First, I used to be like that myself. Just to be completely honest, I've gone to interviews and I started talking to myself in the interview. It's quite embarrassing. And I'm quite sure the interviewer probably thought that there were some issues with me, probably. But nevertheless, it's what I've learned over the years. It's important to be yourself. The reason that I was fearful of going into those interviews is because I was trying to be someone who I was not. I was trying to be this version of Zach that I thought that they wanted to see instead of truly being Zach. So when you walk into an interview room, be yourself. I have a shirt that says be you. Be yourself. Be as authentic as you possibly can. And you won't have to be fearful of what they think about it, because this is who I am. And if you don't like it, then maybe it's not a good fit. But it's good to learn about not being a good fit during the interviewing process, as opposed to getting into the company and then finding out you're not a good fit. So just be yourself. And at least I can, from my personal experience, when I am authentic, when I'm Zach, I'm not fearful of anything. I'll walk in and I'm Zach, and if you don't like Zach, I apologize. I'll try to do what I can to make you like me, but I'm not going to change who I am. You have to have that same personality when you're interviewing as well, in my opinion.
And I'll add to that, Zach. You know, it's a growth process. It's a maturation of knowing yourself, being confident in the information that you know. It has to do with preparation. And there was a point, and I've always been very confident in myself, but there was a point where whenever I went into an interview or I even applied, I always told myself, and this may sound kind of weird, right? But you know, you have to know what motivates you, correct? I always told myself, as if I was speaking to the employer, basically, if you don't want to hire me, don't interview me. Because if you interview me, you're going to have to hire me, because I am that dynamic. I applied for a role that I was qualified for, that I know that I can do, and that I know I'm the best. And those are the things that you have to have as a self-confidence when you go into an interview. It shows. When someone's sitting across the desk from you and you're nervous and you let the nerves get the best of you, it shows. But you have to gain that self-confidence. And I'll tell you, one thing that I learned very early in life about interviewing, and I want these other guys to talk about it as well. But in my opinion, and I worked in the Career Center alongside Dr. Hirsch, there's only one thing that an employer wants to know as they sit across from you. And if you internalize that one thing that I believe it is, and you react and you answer questions based on that premise, you will never bomb an interview. So there's one thing that an employer wants to know, and this is the one thing. What happens when Zach, when Jamise, or when Kayla puts you as an interview, as someone they want to hire in front of a customer? That's all they really want to know, because there's three things that could happen when they put you in front of a customer. One, you could lose the customer. Guess what? That's bad. Two, the relationship stays the same. That's bad too, because there's no growth. Or the third thing is that you grow the customer based on your knowledge of what the organization brings and your believability and relationship with the customer. So if you go into an interview thinking they only want to know really what happens when Zach puts me in front of an Albertsons customer, do I grow the customer? If I don't grow the customer, Zach doesn't need me. So that's how you can start to, build some self-confidence. If you apply for a job, know that you can do the job and be prepared to tell them how well you can do the job. And now, again, that may sound a little weird, but confidence oozes out of a person's spirit, their pores, everything. Jamise, or Zach, you want to respond to that? I'll let you guys respond to just those observations I made.
I wish I had a mic in this room. I would drop it for you. That was great. I don't have much to add. It's all about confidence. If you don't have confidence, it's quite evident when you walk into a room. As I mentioned, I would walk into a room sometimes and I would sweat profusely. And mind you, this was in New York in December. For those who don't know, New York is very cold in December. So there's no reason I should have been sweating. So walking in, I'm sweaty. And it's just because, as Mark mentioned, I did not have confidence. So have confidence in who you are. All of you, you're bringing something unique to the table. And remember, it's not one-sided. The employer needs you just as much as you need the employer. So just keep that in the back of your head. I think sometimes we feel that they need me or I need them more than they need me. No, trust me, we need you. I can speak for Albertsons. We have quite a few openings right now. We need you, we want you. And just keep that in the back of your head. It's not a one-sided relationship.
Jamise, what can you add to that?
I have to echo, we need you. we need you. Know that you are valuable. Know that we would not be spending time on campuses, engaging with students, getting to know all of you, selling ourselves as a company to you if we were not just as nervous that you might not want us. We are having the same conversations internally, like, how can we make Goldman Sachs more appealing to this group of people? How can we make Goldman Sachs an employer of choice? So we're 100% like being just very transparent and very true when we say that it's a two-way street during an interview. You are interviewing us and we are interviewing you to make sure that there is a good fit across the board. I'd say the confidence piece of it, I'm nervous always. I am still nervous in my current job when I have presentations, meetings with my supervisor, all of those good things. I don't know if anyone else is a fan of Rihanna, but when she said on the red carpet, fake it till you make it, like, you just do. I'm here. I think I'm thriving. I hope so. And I just choose, like, even when I'm nervous, even when I am not sure that that was the best possible thing that I could have done, or if it went just the best possible way that it could have gone, I try to look at the positives. I look at where I did great, where I had room to improve, and then I take that and I move forward. And so as you're going through this interview process, like, it's not going to be a one and done. Stop. You're not going to interview with one company and then you'll be, wrapped forever. I mean, unless you are, maybe you're very lucky. I was not. I interviewed with a number of companies during my process. And so every interview, I took a minute to kind of regroup and think, okay, next interview, whether that's a second round with this company or it's a first round with this one, what can I do better than I did in this one before? And just kind of keep that growth mindset at the forefront of your mind. And, like, that confidence will follow on its own.
Kayla.
Yeah, I've been thinking, these are very great responses. And I've been thinking, I am a firm believer in just open and honest communication. And if someone sat in the interviewee seat in front of me and said, you know what, I'm a little nervous today, I would say, you know what, that is okay. We're just going to talk. And hopefully that would then calm their nerves because, like it's been mentioned, we've all been in that seat. Like, we know how scary it is. And so it's okay just to be honest. And that might even actually help you. I've done some presentations before where I've just said, like, I'm a little bit nervous. And I think it actually helped me just to kind of take a deep breath, and you know what I mean? It kind of set this tone for the audience that I was speaking to. I think another thing is whenever we do get nervous, at least one of the things for me is, your voice picks up some speed. I'm a naturally fast talker. If I am like stuck with a clock ticking, like, we're going to get through a lot of information really quickly. But sometimes when I get nervous, I can tend to talk fast and you start to notice that I get out of breath. And so trying to recognize those things, and I can recognize, like, oh, I'm starting to sound like I'm running. Let me just take a quick breath and then continue. You should never be like sprinting in the interview. You should be still. And just another thing of, like, if you start to shake or any of those things, like, find something you can hold on to, like whether it's the seat. But again, like, going back to preparation, if you practice these things, you'll start to notice, like, what things are making you feel nervous, or what your tics are, whether it's, you start getting, heavy breathing or talking fast or using a lot of fillers. Like, don't feel bad to just take a breath. A pause is okay. And then I saw a question about if someone asks you a question that you don't have an answer to, it's okay to just say, I think I might need a minute to think about a response to that question. Can we, do you mind if we go to the next question, or, something like that. It's okay to say those things. Again, the people in front of you, they're really just trying to see how you communicate and what's going to happen when they put you in front of a customer. And if a customer asks you a question that you can't answer, it's a lot better to say, let me get that answer for you, than to try to like just spit out something that's incorrect, not accurate, offensive, whatever it is.
Okay, I'm going to start making sure that we get to these questions in the chat. And whomever would like to jump in and answer, but we have one from Daniela. So thank you, Daniela Hernandez, for the question. What advice can you give to those who struggle talking and reaching out to people? In this case, our coworkers. What advice can you give to those who struggle talking and reaching out to people? In this case, coworkers.
Jump in. I'd say one thing, if you feel like you're struggling talking, reaching out to people, the extroverts will find you. So you will be found. You will be found. You will be plucked from your spot and likely put into the situation where you'll just, you'll have to, float. But I will say in general, like there's always some sort of kind of like, whether it's a learning circles, learning hubs. I know at Goldman, we have like a lunch and learn that we host every Friday for like new employees, new people on the recruiting team. We have socials, happy hours. They're doing the March Madness bracket. I did not participate because I don't understand, but they have that. We had an Oscars bracket for those who don't participate in March Madness. I still didn't do that one because I also didn't understand, but there are a lot of opportunities for you to find your way in a less stressful environment that will allow you to like kind of bring yourself to the table, suss out like what's going on, who's friends with who talks about what, who does what. And then you can really find your way to make those natural connections. So I'd say like the first step would just be like stepping out of your initial comfort zone and just showing up to those events, dropping into the lunch and learn calls, whatever that is. And maybe you challenge yourself. Maybe this time you just listen. Maybe next time it's, okay, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to speak to one person, and you kind of just like build and build. Maybe you find the most extroverted person there, tap them. They'll take you on under their wing. They'll take you everywhere. So you just kind of you'll find your natural, the way that you want to navigate that.
Thank you. The next question deals with being a student who is very clear on the industry and the type of work that they are looking to transition into post-graduation. What is the best way to start to make connections in the industry that you are looking to jump into, and how to reach out to those people in that industry respectfully and to get a response so that you can start to build new connections?
I can offer some thoughts on that. So I would research kind of what's going on in the area related to those industries. If there's any like open events, or like she said, lunch and learns, something to where you can just put yourself around people in that industry for one. And then, you're going to have to put yourself out there and talk to those people, like make a connection, even if it's grabbing a presenter, someone who spoke or something afterwards, and just saying, I love what you talked about, or I'd love to get your thoughts on this, can I email you? Or adding these people, or not, I don't know if you can add on LinkedIn, you connect with them. I'm not a social media guru. But you can, connect with them or follow people in the industry, because you can follow people without having to, make the connection. So just become knowledgeable. When you do make those connections, a good thing and to help make yourself memorable is to add an event or something.
Okay.
Right
So either I-
afterwards, like I started this. Am I back? Am I back? I
Yep.
saw a note. Okay. I was like, follow up with an email or however you want to contact them, LinkedIn, whatever it is, and just say it was great talking to you. Would love to, grab lunch someday and talk more, or would love to get coffee and talk more. And that starts making those connections, and then just do that multiple times.
Thank you. In particular, that was Lucas that asked that question. And Dr. Hirsch, I don't know if they're still having that fair that's usually at the American Airlines Center that's specifically for those that are in the sports related industry. There was one that they had every year that was a 1-day event. It was usually in the spring, and it was, all the Rangers and the Mavericks and Desperados and everyone would be there. But Lucas, that's a amazing place to go and meet people in the sports industry. I can't remember what it was called or when it was exact. I think it was in April, if I'm not mistaken. But Dr. Hirsch may remember what that is and can give you some information. But he was asking about sports related industry specifically.
It's part of a bigger program that Dr. Bob here puts on, and it's a collaboration with the Cowboys and some of the other sports franchises and stuff. And actually, I don't think there's an official title to it. My colleague Destiny Price, though, who works in my office, is our career coach for sport entertainment management. So she's really, really plugged into that. The other thing I would say, and just in general, when we're talking about any industry, just getting to know people who do work you're interested in is incredibly valuable, and it almost always leads to more connections and more information than you really realized about what's going on in a particular field. So I would just encourage you to make connections with people who look like who are doing jobs that look interesting to you, especially UNT alumni. And the LinkedIn page for UNT is an amazing resource. There's over 200,000 alumni on there, and they are remarkably responsive. So I think that's a really good place to start.
Yep. Let's see, Zach, if you'll answer this one for us, please. How do you feel about a general business major applying for a non-management position? Do you prefer that we have that particular degree or not?
We don't necessarily have a preference here at Albertsons Companies. We're looking for your skills and your leadership ability. So if you are selected for an interview, it's important to articulate keep it simple and articulate, one, how are your skills elevate this position or the department that you're applying for? And then two, how are you able to, if it's a leadership role you're applying for, how are you able to take the skills that you've learned in college, or if you've held a supervisory position, perhaps a part-time supervisory position in retail or in another industry, how can you take that experience and lead a small or medium-sized department depending on the role you're going for? So I think it's just important to articulate your skills. Don't necessarily worry about the degree you have. I mentioned I have a liberal arts degree, master's in liberal arts. Why do I have that degree? I have no idea. But once again, I was able to take some takeaways from that degree experience and articulate that when I interviewed for a position, and they didn't really care about the liberal arts degree. They cared about what I internalized from a leadership position in order to contribute to their company.
Thank you. Should students worry about involvement in student groups given how cancel culture is working now? And this is from Hillary. Should students worry about involvement in student groups given how cancel culture is working now?
I'm a little perplexed. I saw this question. The cancel culture part is perplexing. So I guess I would need some clarity on that component of the question. But to answer the first part of the question, I think you should never worry about being involved in student groups. That optimizes your candidacy when you are part of a student group. But I guess I'll need some clarity on the cancer culture part of the question. I don't know if that's just me or not, but.
And the way that I kind of perceived the question was that, and my response is that, as a young adult, as someone that's maturing, there are going to be some missteps. When I was in college in the early 90s, there weren't videos and there wasn't social media for me to make a bigger fool of myself. So you do have to be aware of actions and reactions and different things. But you're young enough that our news cycle is less than 24 hours now. So if you have some missteps, they're going to happen, and you just move beyond them. Cancel culture is only a short news cycle these days. People forget very quickly, and you can move on. You can grow. Yeah, and that's the same thing you're saying here. Cancel for past behavior, comments, political affiliations. You can always speak in an articulate manner to say that you were young and just experiencing life. I mean, it's natural. You're going to have some missteps, and hopefully you don't have to explain too many of them. But I would not keep that from me participating in student groups. Not only are you going to grow socially, you're going to grow immensely in the experiences of that group and be able to utilize those connections again later in life to call upon colleagues to say, I was a part of this sorority or this fraternity or this group on campus, and now we have that mutual thing where we can refer ourselves to other people. Last question I want to ask the panel, then I want the panel to kind of wrap up with last thoughts, but this is the last thing, and this is one of the things that I think is very important for students to get some insight on in today's culture, if you will. Zach, being from New York, going to Boston to go to Harvard and to Boston University. Jamise, being from Dallas, going down to College Station. Kayla, being from a small town in Louisiana, going to Shreveport, then to Dallas. Talk about, if you guys will, the opportunity in relocation, especially in a corporate organization. Talk about the opportunity of relocation. Go ahead and start for us, Zach.
Yes, so here at Albertsons, we have opportunities for relocation depending on where you are. Of course, that's something you'll have to negotiate with your hiring manager when you do start with us in terms of how much and the particulars of the relocation, but we do offer relocation packages here. Just talking from a student perspective, it's important to be upfront when you're interviewing. What I did when I was interviewing right out of graduate school is I asked that question during the first interview: do you offer a relocation package? So be as upfront about it. Once again, if you haven't learned about my personality yet, you probably know I'm big on transparency. So just ask the question, do you offer a relocation package? Because you want to make an informed decision if you are offered the opportunity and you want to understand all of the guidelines. So definitely ask that question during the first interview, in my opinion.
And let me ask you something, Zach. Last time, so you live here in Texas now?
No, I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada. So New York became, my bank account didn't appreciate New York too much, so I had to move, but yeah.
Even better. But the last time you checked, New York was still there, right?
I think so, yes. It's still there.
My point in saying that is a lot of times students get caught up in where they're from and not wanting to leave where they're from and go out and experience new things. And I always tell them, Dallas-Fort Worth will be here when you get back. It's just a flight away, but go out and experience new opportunities, and like you said, you may even get a raise in your pocket from leaving New York because of just how much it costs to live in the Northeast.
Yes, I encourage you, especially as a new graduate, to not limit yourself from a geographic perspective. Broaden your horizons. Now, if there's something that's keeping you, if there's a possible spouse that's keeping you in your location, I get it. But if not, if you're free, explore. There's a whole world out there. And this is something I had to learn myself. There's more to life than New York. There's more to life than Boston. There's a whole world out there. So don't be afraid to explore and to pursue opportunities that are not in your geographic area where you currently reside, because I think it's important for you just from a diversity perspective. And I moved here to Las Vegas and said, wow, they have big mountains here. And this is, wow, they have a desert. We don't have a desert on the East Coast where I'm from. So it was a great experience for me, and I learned a lot. So I encourage you to definitely explore opportunities that are in your geographic area, but also outside of it as well.
Okay, well, I'm against time. Kayla, if you would, I want to start with you with your parting remarks, also about any jobs, internships, anything that you'd like to promote from KPMG, and then we'll follow with Jamise, and then we'll let Zach close out. But certainly, let the students know any opportunities or ways that they can connect with you, et cetera.
Yeah, I'll say at KPMG, like Jamise and Zach said, we need people in a lot of different areas of the firm. And KPMG is not just limited to accounting. We have marketing, and we have technology, and like we have a lot of different areas as well, even though we're an accounting firm. But a lot of opportunities, a lot of just really cool things that we're doing in the firm, a lot of community outreach, and like both of these mentioned, opportunities for relocation, but also just with this virtual environment we're working in, I find members of my team going and spending a month in Colorado in the mountains and working. Like, I wish I could do that. But so it's just an interesting time that we are in. But I would love to connect with anyone that has questions, obviously specific to KPMG, but really just anything else. We understand where you are. And like many of us, we did this several years ago. There's a lot of different variables that you're experiencing now, and really would just love to support you as you progress and determining your career. And obviously, as you progress in your career, I don't know how we're sharing personal information, so who can let me know, but my email, you guys have, or somebody has an email that can share that.
All righty. Thank you so much. Jamise?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll echo those remarks. More than happy to connect on any front, whether that's about Goldman Sachs or just in general as you're navigating your career journey, and what your next step might be. LinkedIn is, the powerhouse this year or always, but you can also email me directly. I believe they'll share emails. Happy to connect. As it relates to Goldman Sachs and our recruiting timeline, we'll spike out that as it relates to like our revenue generating division. So that would be your investment banking, asset management, global markets, consumer wealth management, and global investment research. Our applications are opening. They are live April 1st. So literally by the end of this week, very quick. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. The remainder of our divisions will be opening on that normal July 1st timeline. But if you are interested in the revenue side of things, would ensure that you kind of get your applications in as soon as possible. Same thing, as soon as the applications open July 1st, want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. Fun fact is in Dallas, all 21 of our divisions are available in Dallas. So I know we talked about not limiting yourself to Dallas. You don't have to, but if you wanted to, there are a lot of opportunities that are available in our Dallas office. And I'll also spike out in that is that we are a global company. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to travel and be in a lot of different offices and see all that our nation and our world has to offer. So with that being said, again, any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Happy to coach you through our recruiting process.
Perfect. And Zach, would you?
Yes. So, I'm sorry, Mark.
No.
Yes. Well, I was just going to echo what my two contemporaries said. We have a multitude of positions now. I know you may ask, isn't Albertsons Companies, isn't that a supermarket? You have technology positions, you have operations positions, you have marketing positions. I'm perplexed here. Why are you on this call today? Yes, we have a multitude of positions in our corporate offices, in our division offices. We need human resources professionals. We have a dire need for technology professionals. So if you have an interest in IT or tech in general, we certainly have a need. We have a need for marketing experts. We have a need for operations, finance, etc. So feel free to reach out to me if you'd like, or you can also, of course, go to our website and look at our open positions. But as I mentioned a few times on this call today, we need you, we want you, we would love for you to submit your candidacy. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to assist as much as I possibly can.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. We certainly enjoyed the wisdom and the depth of knowledge. Hopefully, students, that you took some good notes and that you took the opportunity to try to find them on LinkedIn and to make new connections and utilize this information for your benefit. And make sure that you are utilizing the Career Center with Dr. Hirsch and Ms. Price and D. Wilson and all of those good people who are really invested in making sure that you have what you need to be successful in this job search once you graduate. So thank you, Dr. Hirsch. I appreciate it.
And thanks, Mark, for facilitating. Thanks, Janice, Kayla, and Zach for, we couldn't have paid you guys for such great advice. So we very much appreciate you taking the time to give, to our students. And I just want to encourage the students to pay attention, because we have, lots of similar kinds of programs that go on in the Ryan College of Business. And you should take advantage of as many of those as you can, because this is the kind of information that gets shared when we have business professionals and alumni come back. It's the voice of experience, and it's their wisdom, and it gives you a little bit of a head start. And if you want to think about things that can differentiate you, it's this information that you're going to get and then be able to apply going forward. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate your participation, and I guess we'll say goodbye.
Bye. Hey, Dr. Hirsch, if once you have that link, would you send that to me, please?
Yeah, for the
On the recording?
Recording. Yep.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.